Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka. This is episode 38. On the show with me this week is Aly McDonald. She's a dating coach and a therapist. Aly and I had a great time recording this episode. We talk about all sorts of things. First and foremost, does being worthy of having a great partner just automatically get you a great partner? Is there more to it than that? Spoiler alert, yeah, there is more to it than that. So you're going to hear all about that. Making a list of the things you want in a partner, making a list of your dream partner. Do these things work? What's the thought process behind that? What should your dating profiles look like? Bumble, Tinder, what kind of things should we take off there? What kind of things should we place on those profiles if we're trying to date with more intention? At the end of the episode, Aly tells two incredibly cringe-worthy dating horror stories. I had a lot of fun. This episode is super informative, tons of value if you're out there in this fucked up dating world. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Aly McDonald.
This week's conversation.
Aly McDonald, welcome to Sex Party. How are you?
I'm lovely. How are you?
You know what? Today is a little weird. We talked a little bit before we started the interview about it, but I'm good, but I'm also like, am I good? So yeah, a little back and forth, conflicted energy there for everyone. So the people who are listening or watching in the audience who do not know who you are, could you talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Aly. I'm a dating and mindset coach, also a therapist, and I work with mainly women, but I also work with men on really enhancing their confidence when it comes to dating so they have the self-worth to find good partners, because there are a lot of people, and I used to be one of them, and sometimes I even fall into my old patterns as well, where our dating anxiety takes over and we end up dating people who really aren't aligned with what we want or who don't treat us the way we deserve. So I'm there to help my clients and my audience find their self-worth and confidence so they can go out there and find the person that they really dream of.
Great answer. Immediately, let's make this a little chaotic and fun, right? So you said that sometimes you fall into old patterns. What old patterns? How much fun are they? And what does that look like?
Oh, they're always fun. I think the main native pattern that I can catch myself falling back into is the anxious thinking. When I start to like someone, when is he going to text me? Is he going to text me? Why is it taking so long? Does he, those thoughts that could just go and spiral into, just chaos for no good reason. I've gotten a lot better at stopping those thoughts, becoming aware of them, recognizing them, noticing that, they're really not going to serve me. It's not going to help this person text me any faster. It's not going to make me feel any better about the situation. So I found much better, like, coping skills, I guess we'll call them. So those things happen to me less often. And then when they do happen, I don't, we'll say, indulge in it. I don't get stuck in it.
Yeah. So immediately, this is really interesting because I wonder a couple of things. So those patterns, is that what led you to become a coach, a therapist, and like help other people? And double question, when you start falling into those patterns, even with all of your training, right? Like, is there something you go to snap out of it? Does it take as long as it used to? All the things.
Mm-hmm. So first part of the question was, yes, this is how I got into dating coaching. Because I started out with mindset coaching, just regular therapy style of working with people. But I noticed that I really enjoyed talking about dating and relationships. It was the most enjoyable for me. But on top of that, I learned so many things about myself when it came to dating. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I'm not the only one who does this. So that's why I wanted to niche into dating specifically. And then going back to your other question, when I have those negative thoughts, what I usually do is called thought reframing. So if anyone's familiar with CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, it really focuses on noticing your thoughts and shifting them to thoughts that are more reality based and more empowering. So maybe I'll have a thought like, what if this guy never texts me again? I just ask myself, is that realistic? Well, possibly. And then other times it's going to be, no, I hear from him all the time, or, whatever the situation may be. And if it's somebody that I just started seeing where I really don't know if I'm ever going to hear from them again or what's going to happen, I find peace in that. Like, well, is that really a bad thing? And no, actually, it's not, because that just means it's not my person. That doesn't have to mean anything bad about me. Doesn't mean I'm never going to find anyone. It just means that the universe saw that this wasn't a good fit and they are removing them from my life. And so I really that's the way I cope, is I question my thoughts and then I reframe my thoughts and then I distract myself. I go do something else, read a book, go for a walk, get some work done, like literally do anything, because it's easy to just want to sit and worry and analyze and think, when's the last time he texted me? How many emojis did he use? You could go through all of the ridiculous little things, and I just don't allow myself to do that anymore because it doesn't help. It just makes you feel like shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is huge because I feel like everybody that I talk to on the show, through the show, around the show, right? Everyone's like going through something similar on some level. And I think, are you noticing that like the ghosting, the like wait a couple days, is getting worse, or with the internet and fucking pandemics and fucking crazy Game of Thrones politics going on everywhere, right? Like with all the madness, are you noticing that behavior, like I have to seem important, so she wants me more, he wants me more, or whatever, like um they want me more, is that getting worse? Is it getting better? Is it staying the same? You know?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I really don't know. I think with the clients that I work with, I I want to say I see it less, but I think it's because we work together and then they change their patterns, so they date different people. So I think that might skew my perception of like what reality is. But what I do notice is that and I love dating apps. I'm a huge proponent of dating apps. I think they're fantastic. I use them, recommend them. But I think a downside to them is that there's always more, or there's the mentality that there's always more. So I think that does increase things like ghosting or even just self sabotage, where somebody seems like a great fit, but you find one little flaw, one imperfection, one argument, and then people automatically think, well, this can't be it then. There's got to be a better fit out there. They're not perfect. And so then they keep swiping. And I think that's the big thing that I see over and over again. And really, you can't expect to find a perfect partner. You're not a perfect partner. None of us are. And so you have to find the qualities that you're willing to live with and the qualities that are acceptable to you, and be a little more open-minded, because with the freedom of dating apps, another person's just a swipe away, just a match away, there's too much accessibility, I think.
Yeah, so this is continuing to be insanely interesting within the first 10 minutes. So previously to your episode, there's been a couple like right in a row, like dating coaches, dating experts. And we've talked about different things. And the dating app thing keeps coming up. And social media dating apps, I think personally, right? And I do a lot of work in social media. Just outside the show, I have for a long time, and whatever. So I think that these things are really bad for us. But I do think that the reason they're bad for us is because the people in charge are sort of like, hey, buy some skin cream, and you should go to the gym. And so it's like, if if Bumble and Tinder were really interested in finding us a partner, I think it would be bad for their business model, right? And social media, like, they want us to kind of feel like shit and compare ourselves to people, so we buy more things. And like, so I feel that way. But I do agree with you that if you know how to use them, right, you can benefit your life greatly. using them the right way. But there is like this fine line that we're sort of touching on now because of what you just said. And so I'm wondering, can you drill down a little bit more on the dating apps, the social media side from your perspective? Why are they good? Because, and I'll just throw this in there too, to frame it up a little bit. A lot of times on some of the statuses or on my statuses and things I post on Facebook, Instagram, even Snapchat, sometimes people are like, cheating is because social media. And I'm like, that's just human behavior elevated. It's more accessible. And you're kind of like, talking about that and going around that a little bit here in this interview, but also like with your content. So I'm wondering, how do we address that? Where this is just bad behavior. It's not social
Yeah.
media's fault, right? Or dating
Yeah,
apps.
I agree. I think therapy is usually the answer because really, if you think about even why people keep swiping on dating apps when they find an imperfection in someone, or why they are more likely to cheat and send a DM when they're in a relationship. You said it's the accessibility increase, but it's not the cause of it. Like, I can be in a relationship and be on social media and even have guys sending me messages or whatever they're doing. It's not going to make me cheat because I'm not that person. I'm never going to be that person. But if I were already that person inside and then the accessibility is there, well, who knows what's going to happen? And with dating apps and continuous swiping, I think it's just, it shines a light on unhealed parts of a lot of people. Like, because I see that behavior as self sabotage. And I've even dated people like this. I've dated people like this. I've known friends like this. I've had clients who do this. Like, it doesn't make you a bad person. It just shows that you're unhealed. Like, maybe you have, it could be, a typical like childhood trauma story, or it could be a really bad breakup that changed your perception of yourself, or it could be just your own insecurities and self-esteem that, I don't know, maybe you just think you're not good enough for a great partner. Deep down, you don't feel worthy enough. And then you meet your dream person that you've been hoping and praying for your whole life, and they're right there, and there's just something not perfect. Could be something small. Could be you don't even like the way they laugh. What if it's something like that? As silly as that sounds, it's in those tiny things. Or you had your first argument with them and you saw this other side of them that you didn't really like. And it doesn't mean that they're a bad person, doesn't mean that it couldn't have been a great relationship, but something's going off in your head saying, I'm not safe. And so you push them away and you back off and you start over. And all that means is that you got some healing to do. We got to figure out, why don't you feel safe? Why can't you accept a healthy relationship? Why are you afraid of it? What's really underneath all of that? So I think the key is to really do that inner work, which is what I do with my clients. What I think a lot of people out there need to be doing, like just a lot of self-reflection.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And the piece of it that I'm wondering is when clients come to you at first, do you hear that a lot? Are they blaming social media and dating apps for like cheating or like lack of connected like first dates and like all of those things, like lack of intimacy, or are they not mentioning those things at all?
I think they do. I hear a lot of I hate dating apps.
Mm.
Like that's just a common thing. I want to meet people in the wild. I want to meet people naturally. Dating apps are terrible. All these men are trash. Like, I've heard all of that a million times over. And what I always remind people is dating apps are also a great way to meet people because it's accessible. You don't have to leave your bed. You can, finish a work day, swipe, match with people, and like, yeah, you're gonna meet some not so great people. You're gonna have bad dates. You're gonna have creepy weirdos message you. Like, it's gonna happen. Sorry. But there's also going to be great people. There's going to be, quote, normal people that you are looking for. So I do hear a lot of people blame dating apps for, maybe not necessarily, I haven't heard like the cheating thing, but more so dating apps are just bad in general. But I think people often want something to blame rather than looking inward. But also with my clients, they come to me saying I hate dating apps, but they're like, I want to work on myself. Because if dating is not working for you, or relationships haven't been working with you or for you, you want to look at yourself. Like, I'm the common denominator here. I'm the one showing up on these dating apps. I'm the one going on every date. I've been the one in every relationship. What's my role in this? Where can I grow? What am I not doing right? And so I see that piece as well. Like they have some blame, but they're really willing to take a lot of accountability, which is why they're able to make the progress that they do.
Yeah, or even like reach out to you to begin with. I feel like a
Mhm.
certain kind of person, they have to have some level, I would say, and this is your field, not mine, but I'm just making an educated guess that they are somewhat self-aware, right? And they're somewhat sort of like ready to make a change, and they're willing to look at themselves a little bit more than maybe someone who is blaming dating apps and social media and see Adam Levine did it and it's all Instagram's fault. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
because to me it feels like, oh well, Dustin's unhealthy because he keeps that goddamn all you can eat sushi buffet or whatever, and it's like I'm the one going to the sushi buffet that's all you can eat. Like it's a choice, right? And no one's ever
All
said
you can
that
eat
to me, but
sushi sounds fantastic, by the way.
I mean, how do you turn
You
it
probably
down?
have.
Yeah, it's great. It's like 4 blocks from me. I mean, it's a thing,
Yeah, you'd
It's
be there
it
all the time.
I mean, I am there usually once a week. Cheat day, let's go. Don't tell anyone, I'm like sneaking in and whatever,
Yeah.
but it's the same thing with I think
Mhm.
the idea that well, he was swiping on dating apps while we were together. It's like that's kind of his fault,
Mhm.
not Bumble's fault. So it's interesting because I think, people we all want something to blame, but then when you realize like, hey, some of this is my shit, some of this is my fault, and I talked about this in a previous episode too, but like you have to take some level of accountability. And I think, and I looked at a lot of your stuff and it seems to be there's a lot of themes that are really important on your Instagram, your reels. Amazing work, by the way. Informative, but still like really fun, so that's cool. Um, and I think there's this idea that I kept seeing of like worthiness, right? But I think with that, to keep this same vein in this conversation going, I think it's not enough just to be worthy. I think people just assume that when they feel worthy, they're gonna like, hold their hand out and like get the Thor's hammer, right? And it's like, okay, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the work it takes to feel worthy to have a great relationship, but then what else it takes the other 50%, right? Because it's only like 50%, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I've never thought about that, but I think you're right because you can feel worthy but still have really bad habits. Or you can think you feel worthy and deep down somewhere some part of you doesn't. Like I even look back at my younger self like in my mid 20s where I I felt like I was worthy. Like I, did a lot of like psychology work. I was the mindset coach. I did all that stuff. So before I did dating coaching specifically. And I think it was that I felt confident in so many different areas in my life that I thought that also meant that I felt worthy in dating. Looking back, I don't think I did because I wasn't choosing partners who were let's say like fully healed, so able to be in like a good relationship with me. And so that's the thing to look at is you can consciously say you feel worthy of a relationship, but if you are choosing people that aren't, I don't know, aren't consistent, aren't committed to you, aren't treating you right, aren't, just everything that you desire and deserve. Like if you are looking at your friend or someone on TikTok or someone on YouTube and like thinking, wow, they're so lucky. I wish my boyfriend was like that. I wish my husband treated me that way. You don't feel worthy because you are choosing to stay with somebody who's making you feel like shit about yourself. Like you're in a great relationship or a relationship you should be in if you both feel like you won the lottery. That's one of my favorite things I've ever heard and I've stuck by that. I should feel like the luckiest person in the world and so should you. And if I am with someone where I'm not feeling that way and I don't think they feel that way either or it's one-sided, like there's a worthiness piece that's lacking and it's important to go back and figure out when did I lose that? What what time in my life do I remember really feeling totally good about myself? And for some people, they can't remember a time. They don't know. They've always had this voice inside their head. And learning about what does that voice sound like? What is it telling me? What is it saying I need to be better at? What is it saying that I need to improve about myself? and kind of putting that voice to the side. I mean, not putting it aside, you have to like process and work through it, but separating yourself from it and knowing that you are so much more than what that voice is telling you you are. But you're right, worthiness is not everything, but because there's still like, I think, habits that we need to change. Like one would be like when you're, I don't know, when you're dating on let's say you're on a dating app and somebody's messaging you and they're barely asking you any questions, or maybe they're not asking you questions at all, they're just sending you like short messages or whatever, and you're just holding up the conversation very one-sided. Like you might feel worthy, but you are still choosing people who aren't reciprocating, who aren't able to balance things with you. So those are like the habit pieces that we want to change too.
Yeah, again, it's like this Thor's hammer principle, right? It's not enough just to be worthy. Yeah, sure, you get to wield the the weapon, but now you got to take out all the bad guys. So like your
Yeah.
work's only half done, and so I think that that worthiness piece is huge because it's just not it's only 50%. Really interesting though, because in the beginning of this first like 10 minutes of the interview, we talked about how people sort of jump the gun and are like, oh, we had a fight, I'm gonna go find another partner, or I don't deserve this, or I'm not gonna settle, right? And
Yep. Yeah.
then
That's it.
and
That's it.
right, and then now we're talking about how you have to feel worthy, but you have to also like not put up with shit. So those are sort of contradictory items going in different directions. So how do we make sense of that? How do we reconcile the two?
Yeah, such a good question. It is really about balance. And like you said, it's I deserve better than this. I don't need to settle. That's exactly the mentality that people have is like, there's one problem, there's one argument, or he was in a bad mood this one day. Like, I'm out. I deserve better than this. And that's not about worthiness anymore. That's your anxiety speaking. I'm sorry. Every couple is going to have fights. And statistically speaking, 69% of fights that couples have are going to last for the rest of your life with that person. That's just statistics, even in the happiest marriages. Fights don't go away. It's how do we fight? Do we respect each other as we're doing it? Do we respect ourselves? Do we have clear communication and boundaries and all those things? But I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question?
So there's like the piece of it that people are like sort of running to social media or dating apps because they're like, I don't want to put up with this. I'm not going to settle. Right.
Mhm.
And that's one side of it. And then the other side is like feeling worthy, but like kind of checking your partner to make sure that they're making you feel worthy or they're bringing enough to the table where you feel whatever. So those two
Thank you.
things are different because they could probably get those wires crossed pretty easily.
Yeah, yeah, and it can be really confusing. Like even sometimes when I start dating somebody, I have to ask myself, like, is this a real deal breaker or is it not? And one thing that I have most of my clients do is we make lists of what are our deal breakers and non-negotiables and what are our low preferences. Like let's call them like bonuses essentially. And oftentimes we mix these up when we're dating people. We make our bonuses, our low preferences deal breakers, and we make our deal breakers nothing because we like someone. We're like, oh, we have such a great connection. We have great chemistry. I think he's really attractive. We have so much fun together. So I'm just going to ignore the things that I said my non negotiables were. And it's that reversal of things that becomes a problem. So before you start dating somebody, make a list like that. Figure out like when you're in a healthy space, it really helps, especially when you're single, because then you have a clear headspace. You're not making your list based on a particular person that you want to make it work with. Like if you know that this person's already crossing one of your boundaries, you're not going to add to that list to try to convince yourself it's okay to stay with that person. So that helps. Like figure out what are your true non-negotiables. And then the other part is asking yourself, if this were to never change, could I be happy? Because too often we fall for potential, who this person could be based on some of the good qualities we see in them, or maybe even things they talk about that they want to become. Like one day I would like to be this, or I really want to work on this. Great. But are they doing it now? They say they want to be, a better partner. They want to practice communicating better. Are they actually practicing it though? Are they showing you that? And if they're not, imagine that they're never going to change, because truth is most people don't unless they want to, right? We can't force anybody to change, and you should never jump into a relationship with someone that you want to change. That it's like, well, if only he gets better at this, then he'd be a great husband one day. Absolutely not. You shouldn't be staying with him then. If he is not those things now, you should be okay where he is now. Doesn't mean there's not room for growth and improvement for you and for him and you two as a couple. That is obviously that should be there. But if you are depending on that, on the maybe one day he will become this person, that's when there's a problem. And that's where there's that crossover. So if if you can find peace and like, okay, this wasn't so bad. Like, yeah, we had an argument, but he was really, he was loving to me. He gave me a hug after we talked it out. He didn't, say anything mean. He took accountability for himself. I think I can live with this. That's fine. That's how you know it's somebody that you can, maybe you don't have to stay with them forever. Take your time, figure them out, but it's going in the right direction. But if on the other hand, there are clear signs there that there's something wrong, and if he doesn't change himself, it's going to be bad, then it's probably time to walk away.
Man, there's so much here, and I think it's really all valuable. Just to talk about that, I do feel like a lot of relationships are people who are attracted to someone, they get together, right? And then at some point, they're like, those things that they were attracted to, they're like, that doesn't work for me. You can't be acting like that in the bar, or you can't be still at that job, right? I have a friend, she will remain nameless, but I'm sure if she's listening, she knows who she is. She started dating, she's a bartender. She kills it. She makes like triple what you would think a bartender would make at on a Tuesday. She's just really nice and talented and awesome and knows what's up. She makes a mean, whatever, probably everything, like just shots all around, all the things. And so this guy comes into the bar, they hit it off, they're in a relationship. And now, right, like 3 weeks in, pretty early, buddy, right? He's like, you shouldn't work there anymore. I was in there and like, some customer is like, you want a slice of pizza? I got this pizza. She's like, oh yeah, I have a 10-minute break. And he's like, marches in there and is like, you're splitting a pizza with some guy, like just insanity, right? So I think that that's an example of being attracted to someone and the things that they do, their personality, their outgoingness, their drive, their intelligence, and then immediately for some reason being like threat, and then trying to take all those things out. As a coach, as a person who's clearly intelligent, what the fuck? Like, how do we figure this one's sticky because I feel like it's an innate for some people who are not self-aware. They just want to get this person, wrap them up, pull them down, keep them, and then lose interest. That's usually how that process goes, but I'm sure you have more intelligent, eloquent things to say.
No, I think you made total sense. I think if this friend of yours is still with him, run, 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 run. There's somebody who's just really controlling because of their own insecurities, and this does happen often. And our people show us who they are early on. It's our job to listen to them. If it's only a few weeks in, or even a few months in, and the person you started dating changes their personality, they didn't change their personality. They're showing you their real personality. This is who they were. It's easy to be in that honeymoon stage, and I don't know if it's intentional or not with most people. I feel like it's unintentional most of the time that people like put on a front because they're just happier. They want to get to know you. They're excited to meet you. Like it feels good, and so they present as a happier, more calm version of themselves. Then they get more comfortable with you, and their true colors start to come out. It's our job to pay attention because the things that we ignore in the beginning are usually the reasons we break up in the end, or the things we ignore in the beginning are the reasons we're miserable in that marriage in the end. Because the things that, like this, right, it could be easy to just ignore and be like, oh, he just cares, he just doesn't like that people are creeping on me. There are a lot of weirdos out there. I am this age, maybe I should get a better job. He's right. It's easy to do that. It's easy to rationalize these comments when we want to stay with someone. But now you have fallen for the potential of who he could be. You've fallen for an idea of him because who he actually is right there. He's controlling. He's possessive. He's judgmental. And it's bound to get worse over time because it pretty much always does. The more comfortable somebody gets, It's hard to walk away though, because you're like, we already had all these good memories. We have this great connection. He was so fun and so good to me those first few weeks or the first few months. And like, we can really lean on that. But that's no longer. That's just memory now. Reality is right in front of you. Is reality okay right now? No? Then just imagine it's going to get worse and just know that it's probably best for you to walk away.
Oh boy. The interesting thing about this is I'm thinking about this is it, again back to this like Thor's hammer moment, right? She felt worthy because she came from a really terrible relationship, the worst kind, and then she was like, I'm done with that. I want to move on to something healthy. I feel worthy. And then here comes this guy. He's like treating her good. And then again, she's got the hammer, but there's the bad guy. And what are you going to do? Kind of a thing.
Yeah. Oh, I see this all the time with my clients. I see it all the time. So let's say I have a lot of my clients are just getting out of a breakup. They come, they're sad, working on, loving themselves again and healing and whatever. And then we do all the internal work to build up their confidence, to build up their worthiness and whatever else. Then they feel ready to date. They're like, I'm good. Like, it's the most confident they've ever been. It's fantastic. They start dating and they're usually like, oh my gosh, I didn't know guys could treat me this well. I didn't know it could be this easy. And then for some of them, it stays that way. And the guy's wonderful and it works out and it's like, it's wonderful. Other times they come to me and they say all that. And then they kind of go back to their old ways. Because something in that guy changes. I actually just had a client this morning who was texting me about something that it kind of falls in line with this, where she was, we'll say, almost going to go back to her old ways of like giving in and crossing boundaries because she likes this guy. Like, he wanted her to come over and do like a Netflix and chill kind of date. And she's texting me basically saying, I'm not comfortable with that, but like, he doesn't really have another idea. He has all these things. And I'm like, no, you get to be honest with him. You get to. And if that scares him off, good, let him go. You're telling me that this is crossing a boundary and that it is a value of yours that you want to uphold. If he really wants to be with you, he's going to do that. But even for her, all the work that she's done on herself and how much she does love herself now and she does know what she deserves, she's still like teeter-tottering, like, is this okay? Because we start to overthink things about ourselves. We start to wonder, am I asking for too much? Am I too much? Maybe I'm wrong. And it's that self-doubt piece that really makes things muddy. But if you know at your core, like truly at your core, that you are worthy of a great partner who respects you and loves you and, fill in the blanks of all the things you ever desired, you still choose to not put up with this. Like, personal example, just maybe like a month and a half ago, I don't know, recently enough, I ended things with somebody, and I shared about it on TikTok. I don't know if you saw it, but I ended things with somebody that I was seeing. It wasn't my boyfriend, but we were, seriously, exclusively dating. I ended things with him because I saw a side of him that I didn't like, and it was not one that could be worked with. We'll just put it that way. For his anonymity. How do you use that word? Anonymity. For him to stay anonymous. I don't want to.
Anonymity. Yeah.
Anonymity. I don't want to give details, but it was even tough for me. Like, I'm the dating and mindset coach. I work with clients on this. I'm a therapist. I post videos for thousands of people to see all about this. And it was still hard for me to cut things off because I had a million good memories with him. Maybe not a million, that's strong. I had enough good memories with him and he had so many great qualities that it could be easy to sidestep and be like, oh, but this thing. No, but if that thing is bad enough, you have to know that you are worth all of the good minus the bad. And that's what true worthiness is walking away, knowing that.
I mean, Aly, that's so, to me, that seems like so giant. I think that's what makes you a good fucking coach, is that you're admitting that you're going through it too still, right? With all of your training and all your fucking Jedi shit, you still have that doubt, or that you want it to be certain so badly that you know that it's not. And so I applaud that and I love that. And I think that just as being on the show as a guest, like, that makes me trust you more. So I can only imagine, potential clients, like, they're lucky to have someone like you who's like real and in it and honest, because And again, like everybody does things their own way or whatever, but think that's just huge. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
do. I think that the people we learn the most from are the people who are most authentic with us. Like, I would never want to just be that professional, boring therapist who's like, these are the rules. This is how you have to do it. No, like, I'm human and we're all human. And I think it makes this work feel maybe more accessible to people. Like, because it's easy to look at somebody, and because I used to be this person, like somebody who's just like very confident, whether it's in dating or any area of life, like, oh, that's just them. That's just how they are. I'm not like that. Well, guess what? I was not always like this either. Like, if you could see younger me, I was the world's just most terrible dater of all time. Like, that's why I do this stuff. And I want to share those stories. I want to talk about what I still struggle with, because I want people to know that you can do it too. That if it just came easy to me, I don't think it would have the same impact on people.
Yeah, I mean, insanely well said. And there's a number of different ways we can jump. And before we jump, I do want to go back real quick because you said 69% of arguments last the whole fucking relationship. Okay, this is probably the truest thing that has ever been said on this show. Will probably be in the season 1 wrap up, because I'm like, I think it's hilarious because I've been there on both sides, obviously. And also, too, like, I don't know if it's because I do a sex and relationships podcast, but like I'm always like standing somewhere and there's a couple arguing about like Jenna O'Neill or something from when she texts you after the wedding or like whatever, or like in a movie, but it keeps happening to me. And I actually want to have a couple like come on the show and like just have an argument, because I think it would
I
be
love it.
amazing. Yeah, it
Yeah.
would be amazing to like have a vote of who's correct and whatever. But that, like, why do you why do you think it is that for that 69%, right? Why can't we let go of shit? Why can't we let go of Jenna O'Neill?
So the research actually shows that they're called perpetual arguments. That we fight about the same things because of innate, just like personality differences, ways we were raised, values that we have, I don't know, life experiences, things like that. So common ones are money. Like, a lot of couples argue about money because they have very unique perceptions of how money should be spent, saved, invested, blah 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 blah. A lot of people think, though, if we have these innate differences about how we view money, then we can't be right for each other. No, you just find ways to work together. You're going to just have that argument a lot, but it's, how do I argue about it? Do I respect you? Do we compromise? Do we find ways to make both of us happy in this? So I think it just makes sense that couples are going to argue about the same topic over and over. Like, not all of them. Some of them can be resolved because they're situational, they're temporary. But when it comes down to something like, real, that's deeply maybe affecting you, or even like somebody, let's say one person is like an early morning person, another person's like a night owl. And there's always some conflict about when we're going to sleep or when we're going to schedule things, because one person likes to do them late, another person likes to do them early, or one person is more of an introvert, one person's more of an extrovert. One person likes to text a lot and they like that constant communication. The other one's like, I don't want to be on my phone. Like, these are just ways that human beings are different, and we don't necessarily want to change those things about our partner. I mean, sometimes we think we want to, but then that would be changing who they actually are as a human. So that's why they keep going and going. It's making sure you do them in the right way, because these fights can break people apart. Obviously, they often do. But we want to go more into research. The couple, and this is all, if you or any of the listeners have not heard of this researcher, his name's Dr. John Gottman, and he has studied couples for the last, I think, 30 years. And he knows with, I think it's 92% accuracy, which couples will stay together and which ones will divorce after watching them for 15 minutes. It's insane. So there are so many things that I think we need to learn, not just about dating, but the next step is, how do I have a good relationship once we pass the dating phase? Because you're going to argue. There's no question there. You're going to have differences. There's no question there. But the happiest couples have at least a 5-to-1 positive to negative interaction ratio, which means that even for something as simple as like one of those like little eye rolls. Now to make a positive ratio, you have to have at least 5 positive interactions. So whether that's a compliment or holding hands or smiling at each other, nothing crazy. It can be very tiny, tiny things, but the negative moments outweigh the positive moments. So you want to make sure that you are a partner who's able to give those positive interactions and not get stuck in the negative, because that's another reason why a lot of people, do self-sabotage good relationships or people that they're dating, because they're not, let's say, skilled in having healthy communication.
And that, to me, is one of the craziest things in all of dating and all of society. Why we never prioritize communication. It's like, oh, if it feels awkward, just don't talk about it, and like everyone's like sweeping all of this shit under the rug and then wondering why it's not working or why they chose a partner. But I felt worthy, and then it's not working out, poor me, and all of those things. But it does sort of start, you're right, like with communication. And you said, when people are dating, when they're single, preferably to make that list of things they want, things they could, deal breakers, and the stuff that maybe they could put up with, or however you put it. It's always better than
Mm-hmm.
how I put it. But what else can they do to help that communication, right? With a potential partner, and how much of that is sort of like getting over or like recognizing your own fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because that's basically what I was about to say. You have to get tired of your own bullshit 100%, because you are half of the equation. When you're in a relationship, it's not supposed to be 50-50. It should be 100-100. Everyone should be giving it their all. And you have to make sure that you are a partner that the partner you want would want to have. So what I refer to it as is like level 10 men and level 10 women, just because I think it's a good visual. If the women I work with say they want a level 10 man, it's like, well, are you showing up as a level 10 woman? Doesn't mean that you're not. Like, innately you are innately worthy, but are you showing up as that? Because a level 10 partner at all, you're going to have healthy communication, you're going to have healthy boundaries, you're going to be able to like work through conflict, you're going to be patient, you're going to have all of these great things. You have to figure out what have been my flaws in the past. Look back at past relationships, even past friendships. Like, some of my clients have never even been in a relationship, and that's fine. It doesn't mean that you can't practice these things. Look back at family relationships, friendships. You can practice communication there. Practice it with, I don't know, your coworkers, like really anybody. Because if you want to attract a good partner, you want to keep a good partner, you better level yourself up too, because you are half of the equation.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so huge. And I think that's like, basic self-awareness training. And it's not easy, but if you can do it, if you can sort of get sick of your own shit and then be like, oh, fuck, that's not great. And you can talk about it and whatever, but then also sort of get it on a level where it's not going to be a huge fucking issue. So that way you can, hopefully have a relationship. But again, it's not, first of all, it's not easy to do that. But second of all, getting sick of your own shit is a whole thing. And I think, you know, can you think of a time, maybe younger Aly, like, oh my God, I'm so sick of my own shit. Like, can you think of an example?
Oh yeah, the time that everything in dating changed for me is when I got tired of my own bullshit. I remember going to my coach at the time, and I had what I call my dream man list, and it's another thing I recommend people to do, like write your dream partner list so you can start believing that it's possible for you. Like, so you're not settling. But either way, I had my dream partner list in detail, loved it, and I kept attracting people like that. It was happening, but nothing was working out for me. I would be like, I always had this trend, like, don't know why, where I would date people and everybody would be like, oh my gosh, I could see myself being in a relationship with you, or I'm going to marry you someday. Like, it was always that. And then it always came down to the end, like, and it would always end in like a few weeks. I had like a year and a half period where this just like kept happening. They'd end in like 3 weeks to 2 months. And they'd be like, I'm not ready. It's basically like, it's not me, or it's not you, it's me. And it really always was. They always had some kind of like mental or emotional health problem that I was just like sidestepping. And I remember going to my coach and I'm like, I'm writing my dream man list and I keep attracting exactly that, but they're just not ready for commitment. And she was like, well, is that on your list? Somebody who's ready for commitment? I'm like, oh shit. And it wasn't just that it wasn't on my piece of paper. It wasn't in my mind. I was just looking for somebody with like certain qualities, but I wasn't prioritizing finding someone who's really ready for a relationship, which includes things like they have a job that they feel really stable in and like are happy with their job. Another one would be like somebody who's mentally stable, which I can't tell you how many mentally unstable people I've dated in the past because I just kind of like normalized it. Like, oh, everyone has anxiety, everyone has depression. And like, yeah, to an extent, most or a lot of people do, but it's, are they coping with it? Are they processing it? And like, how is it affecting them? I wasn't paying attention to that stuff. So for me, getting tired of my own shit was me finally just getting tired of attracting people that I had great chemistry with that wanted to be with me, but basically could not be able to be with me because they weren't at my level. And so when I made all those epiphanies, that's when I started changing things, where I started having conversations with men like, what is it that you're looking for? What are your intentions? Like, what do you see yourself, or how do you see your life in 3 years, ideally? And I would allow men to paint a picture for me. And that's what I really recommend people doing if you are just starting to date somebody new. It's good to ask what they're looking for and intentions, but as we all know, people can lie or whatever. So I like to ask, where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? And you can change the timeline, but I think 3 years is good because to me, it's enough time to think about like getting engaged, getting married, blah, blah, blah. 1 year might be too soon to really hear where a person might stand with all of that. 5 years is very distant. So they could say all of those things and it not be immediate. So I'd like to ask like a 3 year vision. And if they are like, I just want to travel and do all these things, like, yeah, me too. But if you're not throwing like, I really want to settle down and get married and start a family, I know we're not on the same page and I'm not going to continue dating them. So that I think was my first big breakthrough. And then I had a million more after that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, that's fucking awesome. And like for me personally, I've had so many moments where I'm like, "Oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with you, man?" Like I'm so sick of my own shit and it kept happening over and over and over again. And maybe still will. You did say the question, right? Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Are you asking that like on a first date? Is that like a second date? Is that like on Bumble? Like when are you asking that question?
I think it varies. I think I usually get a good first. I think I weed people out pretty well on dating apps. Like I make it very clear just on my profile what I'm looking for. Like I always say, don't just push the I want a relationship button because people just click it. It doesn't really mean much because some people lie with it. So I actually write out what I'm looking for in one of my prompts or in my bio. And because of that, I tend to really only attract people that are looking for exactly what I'm looking for, which is like they want to get married, they want to have kids, they want to settle down. And most of the time, men end up telling me that without me even having to ask. Like oftentimes on a first date, second date, or even just like before we meet, they throw it out there. So I don't often have to. But if they haven't thrown it out there and I'm still like, I think they want that, but I'm not too sure, I just ask it when it naturally comes up. Probably no later than like date 3, I would say, because I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste theirs either. I want to make sure it doesn't mean that we're planning on marrying each other after date 3, but I want to know that we're at least headed towards the same goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge and I've had conversations on the show about the dating app thing. Because when I was on dating apps, I was just like, was just doing the typical at the time like avoidant stuff where you're just kind of swiping for validation or like an ego boost, right? And all that. And then and a lot of people, again, and this has come up over this last year, is a lot of people, especially, post pandemic, are like, no, like if you're avoidant and da 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 da, like see you later. And I was getting annoyed with that because I'm like, what the fuck? But I have to tip my hat that I'm not wearing to those people because they know what they want and and they're in it and they're doing it just like you, right? So in the spirit of that, not wearing a hat and still tipping it, can you give maybe some pointers, some tips to women out there, right, on how to maybe not only like lock down their profile to attract a better partner, but to act within it, stay within it?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I just write it out first thing. Like, don't be afraid to say exactly what you're looking for, because a lot of people are. They'll tell me things like, well, what if I get less matches? Or what if that freaks them out? What if that's too forward? What if that seems too desperate? If somebody thinks all that, let them go. Good. Let them weed themselves out. That's the goal here. You will likely get less matches. You will likely get less dates. I go on less dates than I ever did before I had standards like I do now. But my dates are significantly better, and they actually go places. Like it's so much different. So write it out. Write out exactly like, I would like to get married in the next few years, or I'm looking for my person, or I'm looking to settle down, or whatever it is. And then to stick with that, like, make sure you're talking to people who are really engaging in conversation with you. Like you said, there are so many people on dating apps looking for validation. And it's easy to notice that because they're not really trying to get to know you. They're not asking you questions. They're not following up. They're not planning a date. And unmatching those people, when you start to even really wonder, like, are they even interested in me? You're probably right. They're not interested in you, or you wouldn't be wondering that. So unmatch them. And then only go out with the people who are really putting an effort to get to know you and to, I don't know, build something with you over time.
Yeah, that's huge. And like that just sounds like a ton of intention and staying within their intention of what they want and acting within that intention, which can be really difficult, but huge fan of that, right? Now with the profiles, right? Are there any tweaks? Like should they put in all caps like, if you don't like macaroni and cheese, don't bother, or like whatever thing that they need? Like how specific, how dialed in are we getting?
So I actually don't recommend putting anything like "don't match with me if" or "no," nothing negative, because that's just like a gross energy that is,
Mm.
it's such a turnoff to people who actually are looking for a healthy relationship. Like if I see anyone who's like, "no drama," I'm like, oh, it sounds like your drama. Like, no, thank you. Or they're like, "I'm not looking for a hookup." Well, me neither, but I don't need to write that out. Let's look what you are looking for. Let's look for what you do want. So that's number one. Other thing I would say is make sure your questions, like let's say you're on an app with prompts, make sure that the questions you're choosing, the prompts you're writing, actually either describe and like who you are or what you want. Like anything about like macaroni and cheese, or how much you love The Office, or your favorite meal, yeah, that's cool information, but that's not gonna help me get to know you. Like I did a profile, I call them profile audits. I did a profile audit with one of my clients like a week ago. And one of hers, which I thought was a cool fact, it was like a cool fact about me is, and her answer was like it was like she was on some Nickelodeon show or something like that. And I was like, damn, first of all, that is cool. I would like to hear about that. But second, that's not gonna weed anybody out. Like it was just like a random piece of information from her childhood that doesn't paint a picture of who she is now or what she's looking for. So I say at least one prompt where you clearly state what you're looking for, as in like a relationship or whatever, or what type of person you're looking for, and like break it down. And then the rest of them, have them be like details about you, or how to ask you out, what kind of dates you like to go on. And then the rest of those random pieces of information, like the show you were on, or the food you like, or the TV shows you like to watch, you can talk about that on your dates. Like those are the details they get later, but weed people out.
Yeah, huge. And I was like just chaotic and bored and avoidant. And I remember, before I dated or deleted all my dating apps, I put in there, oh, I'm host of this podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sex party and sex and dating, and my matches like quadrupled overnight, but it was all just like, I wouldn't say equally chaotic energy, but it was more of it. So it's like, you know, sometimes you get what you ask for. And I think that's a huge point. And you sort of kind of touched on that. And I think people listening to this will be able to like drill their profiles down a little bit, and like, you know, because there is that intent piece, there is that be careful what you wish for piece, you know, there is that you don't need to say the macaroni and cheese line. We'll get to that. So it's like, I think it's all about you know, really truly going after what you want in a way that's more, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like organized maybe.
Yeah, it is about being intentional, like you said. It's all about being intentional from the moment you create your profile. If you want to someone who's intentional with building a life with you, then it starts with how you put that profile together.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the dating app game has changed because at first, when they first came out, everyone's like, "This is awesome! Oh my god, well, what the fuck?" You know, like
Hmm.
for the attention, and then some people it was probably, I don't know, like 5-10 years ago, it was like way more relaxed, right? And now it's people are there's a lot of garbage on there in terms of like bots and fucking psychos and whatever. But also now it's like people are more, I do think people are more intent driven, having gone through like the crazy health thing this last 2 years and all the, like I said, the, you know, bonkers craziness. So I think that's catching on at least, and I think what you do is giant for that. And I just wanted to give them something they could take and be like, oh yeah, I should probably cut this thing about the fucking everyone talks about
Yeah.
The Office on Bumble.
Yes.
What the hell is
I don't know. I don't know. Like
overkill?
I don't. Yeah, I don't get it. Like I'm looking for the Pam to my Jim. I think that's what the characters are. Like
Yeah.
everybody's typed that. I used to have a thing on my phone, like notes. I always meant to make a video on this, but I have not got to it, about like things to not put in your Hinge profile because they're so overstated. Like I'm trying to think of some. I can't think of any right now, but it's like, did you just copy and paste that from every other profile?
Probably people do that too a lot.
True. That's why you want to make yours stand out. Describe who you are. Make it unique. People like that.
Yeah, totally. Say something weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so so at the that's always the answer. Just say something weird. At the end of the episode, I'm wondering if you feel comfortable enough. Can you give us a dating horror story?
Ooh,
Okay, like if you have one off the top of your head,
okay.
amazing. If you need a moment, I can keep fucking
You
delaying. I
know,
can keep stalling.
I have a couple. I have a lot. I like horror. What kind of horror story? Give me like a.
Oh, like the most awkward thing you can
Okay.
talk about.
Okay. I'll give you two brief ones, and they both happened last year. So one was this guy who couldn't stop doing like finger guns. He was the most awkward person I've ever met, literally my entire life. And I really tried to just, be nice and be friendly, but not give off flirty vibes because I try my best to not lead people on and just, but just be polite. But he would say things. He'd be like leaning over the whole time and like curling his beard. And he'd be like, this is the first time I've ever grown a beard before. And then he would just be like playing with it. It was very strange. And he would mumble a lot and like kind of whisper while we're sitting at this bar. And I would just go, what? And he'd be like, sorry, I'm just silly. And he would do that. I don't know how many times he gave me the finger guns, but it was the most painful thing in the entire world. And so when we left, and he texted me later the next day or whatever, I just told him, like, because I don't ghost people. I'm not about ghosting at all. I just said, I didn't feel a romantic connection. Don't want to continue. Hope you found what you're looking for. And then he tried to get me to come over with an eggplant emoji. Don't know where he got that vibe after I said I didn't feel a romantic connection. I'm sure everyone in the bar could feel that too. So obviously I ignored that text. And then I also had another really weird date last year. I was eating at a Chick-fil-A and some nice guy came over and talked to me. He seemed totally normal. And then we got to the date, and I swear to you, he seemed like he was acting the whole time. Like he was putting on a show. I think he kind of fake cried. He was just very dramatic, over the top, just like super creepy. Like he had said, we were talking about siblings, and I was like, "Oh, do you have any siblings?" And he was like, "Oh, thank you so much for reminding me." And I was like, "Reminding you what?" And he goes, it's my sister's birthday next week, and thank you. And I was like, I didn't do anything. And he goes, I just can't believe, oh my gosh. He's like, my birthday's October this, and her birthday's July that, and I just can't. And everything he spoke was like that, just very dramatic, super creeped me out. And then when he went to drop, I didn't want him to drop me off. I walked to this restaurant or to the bar, and I wanted to walk home by myself. I didn't want him to know where I lived, but I felt like he was just going to follow me. And so I was like, instead of risking my safety that way, I'm just going to pretend to go along with it and like let him drop me off or whatever. We're getting out of the car. And I had just got out of a relationship a handful of months prior, and that had been mentioned. And we're getting out of the car, and I go to give him a quick side hug, and he goes, "Wait, hold on." And he pulls me in for a full hug, and he's like, "Did you know that hugging someone for at least 7 seconds releases oxytocin?" Or maybe it was 15 seconds or something weird. And I'm thinking like, oh shit, like it's nothing but cortisol right now on my end, but like, I'm just gonna, and then I'm stepping out, and he goes, "You know what?" I'm like, "Yes." And he goes, "I don't think you're ready to have sex." I was like, "What?" And he's like, I was just thinking because you got out of a relationship recently, and when we have sex with somebody, we take on all of their problems. We take on everything they've been through and everything they're feeling and everything they're thinking. And I just don't think you're ready for sex. And I was like, "Is that a question or a statement?" He's like, "Well, it wasn't really a question." I said, "Okay." And I walked out and never talked to him again.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I asked for awkward. I got serious awkward. One, the first guy, so you're on a date with Dr. Robotnik from the Sonic games. And two, this other guy just sounds like some sort of like conjured up internet mess or something. Anyway, he picked you up at a Chick-fil-A?
Oh, wait, not like physically picked me up, but hit on me at a Chick-fil-A, yes. I was
Right.
sitting there eating a sandwich, and he sat next to me, and he's like, "Hey." Started talking, and he seemed totally normal. And then we went on the date. It was like a personality flipped. It was super fucking creepy. Like, this was the first and only date I've ever been on that I was like actually creeped out. I'm like, I don't know who you actually are. And then he made that really creepy comment on my way out the door that completely confirmed everything I was feeling. And his car was trashed with more garbage than I've ever seen in a car in my entire life. Like, he's somebody who had like an image, like he had the nice watch, the nice suit, like, and I knew something was fake about it when we were sitting at this bar. And then we get in the car, it's full of trash. He has to throw out pizza boxes, and it's all over the place. Like, I'm like, I knew there was something weird about you. So yeah, he was creepy.
Yeah, he had pizza boxes in his car. Aly McDonald, thank you so much for being on Sex Party. Where can people find you? Where can people work with you?
You can find me easiest place is TikTok. Username is Dating with Aly. I'm also on Instagram. I have a smaller audience there, but I post a little bit more behind the scenes, more stories about myself there. If you want to work with me, my links are all in my TikTok bio, or you can DM me on Instagram. I do one-on-one coaching. I offer group coaching, and I'm also in the next couple of months hoping to launch like an online course and community as well. So if anyone is interested in any of that, you can find me somewhere on social media and DM me there.
Yeah, go check out her Instagram. Well, her TikTok too, but I can totally vouch for the Instagram. It's awesome. So thank you for being here, and I would love to have you back in the future. So we'll be talking soon. But thanks so much.
Thank you. I had fun.
Thank you so much to my guest, Aly McDonald, for being on the show with me this week. Thank you, Aly. Make sure you guys go check out all of her stuff on Instagram, on TikTok. Work with her. Everything is linked in the notes. If you guys are appreciating guests like Aly, if you're still on board with all of my nonsense, if you'd like to show some appreciation, you do not have to do these things. But if you do, you are helping to make the show grow. And one day this show will be a giant monster. Just kidding. Maybe I'm not. But if you want to show your appreciation and you're listening on platforms like Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, iHeart, you can subscribe to the show. You can leave a rating. You can leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, yo, what the fuck? We good? If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the video. You can subscribe to the channel. You can leave a comment. I appreciate you all. And I can't wait to see you right back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter @SexPartyFM. follow Dustin at Dustin Rybka.